Preparing for a historic monster storm.
This could be the worst storm to hit Florida in over a century.
The extremely serious threat Milton is now posing to the southeast. The storm is now growing larger as it persists on its dangerous path to Florida. The dire warnings being issued, the preps and evacuations now underway. We're on the ground and tracking the storm. Plus,
it's profound, and it is the height of irresponsibility and, frankly, callousness.
Yeah.
So lives are literally at stake right now.
The intense political debate being waged across the airwaves as both former President Trump and Vice President Harris raise the heat on each other amid accusations of misinformation. And
most important thing is to get those voters out and get them to safety, or put them in a room, get in the room, barricade the door, and fight for your life if you have to. And I never thought I'd ever have to say those words.
they are running through violent scenarios that could play out on November 5th, just as we get breaking news of an Election Day terror plot foiled. We introduce you to the people across this country who are dedicated to ensuring the integrity of the voting process as we launch our new series leading to Election Day, Protecting Your Vote. Good evening, everyone. I'm Linsey Davis. Thank you so much for streaming with us. We have a lot of news to get to tonight, but we begin with Hurricane Milton, that historic Category 5 storm churning toward the Florida coast tonight with winds up to 165 miles per hour. Governor DeSantis is warning residents, get out now. President Biden called it a matter of life and death. And time is running out at this hour. Hurricane Milton is a monster storm about 480 miles from Tampa, where the eye is likely to make landfall late tomorrow night or Thursday morning, with a record storm surge as high as 15 feet. It could be the first direct hit in Tampa from a major hurricane in more than a century. A team of hurricane hunters feeling the force of this historic hurricane flying into the eye wall to collect data. Police in Treasure Island, just outside Tampa Bay, driving through neighborhoods with emergency warnings, urging people to evacuate now. And just take a look at the gridlock getting out, bumper-to-bumper traffic for miles on I-75 near Naples. Tonight, more than 1,300 Florida gas stations are out of gas. Our team is standing by across Florida as this historic hurricane gets closer to making landfall. And we begin with our chief meteorologist, Ginger Z, in Tampa for us. Ginger, time this all out.
Yes, Lindsay, we have to start with what's going to happen here. So Tampa's right behind me, and I just want to say on the northwest side of the storm, that left side, which is not the dirty side, we would get offshore winds. And so this big bay will still pile a ton of water up on this little peninsula I'm on all of the homes on the boulevard here that so many people know, and in St. Pete. So when you see this forecast, because of the little nudge south, I want you to know that 10 to 15 feet of surge is still in play. Not just here in Tampa Bay, but I'll go ahead and tell you all of it. Let's start with the satellite image. That satellite image is showing Milton just passing north of Cancun. It's about 450 miles to my southwest from Tampa Bay here. Landfall will be late Wednesday night through early Thursday. So we got about 30 hours before landfall, but it's not going to be pretty in about 18 hours. You'll start to see the impacts. Now, it still looks like it would make landfall as a Cat 3, and the category doesn't matter as much as we close in on what's going to happen here. The impacts are going to be so much more widespread than that cone. Look at the timing. Thursday afternoon is when it exits into the Atlantic again, right over the Space Coast. So you could have hurricane force gusts all the way across central Florida, terrorizing it there. That's why we've got Daytona up to Jacksonville Beach, down to Vero Beach, Orlando and Melbourne, over to Tampa, Cedar Key, and Fort Myers, all in a hurricane warning. But tropical storm watch is still up to Charleston. Now, I wanted to just bring you all of the impacts, right? So let's talk surge first. It's the 10 to 15 feet around here. Sarasota, Bradenton, really concerned about you. You're in that dirty side. Venice is as well, Rotunda. Fort Myers has upped their surge to 8 to 12, and Naples has gone up to 5 to 8 feet. Even Jacksonville Beach, with that turnaround, with the wind pushing the water onshore, could see 2 to 5 feet of surge. Now let's time it out. This short-term model has some of the wind gusts like St. Pete Beach up to 115 at 11 p.m., nearly 100 at Sarasota just before midnight there. And then it moves right over, and Orlando has gusts of 60 plus. Here's the other problem. Been really wet. Tampa Bay in the top 10 wettest seasons on record already, probably going to get to the top wettest year on record. And now we're getting up to 18 inches of rain on top of all of this. I think in a place along I-4, you're going to see power outages, but you'll also see trees down, even with a 60-plus mile-per-hour wind, because it's been so wet. So, Lindsay, there are a lot of factors going through here, but the worst of this really starts in about 24 hours.
I know you'll be monitoring it for us. Ginger Z, our thanks to you as always. And in Tampa Bay, the mayor there has a dire warning to those who stay behind. You are going to die. Whit Johnson reports on the preps and evacuations as this monster storm bears down on Tampa Bay.
Tonight, mandatory evacuations on both coasts of Florida. Highways jammed. Millions heeding the calls to get out of Hurricane Milton's path before it's too late. Tampa's airport already deserted. Orlando's packed, set to close tomorrow. Authorities filling Tropicana Field with cots, a base camp for first responders. Governor DeSantis mobilizing some 8,000 National Guard troops.
This is probably the largest National Guard mobilization in advance of a storm in Florida history.
The monster hurricane strengthening back into a Category 5 in the Gulf. Hurricane hunters jolted by extreme turbulence as they flew into Milton's eye wall. A storm taking aim at the Tampa metro area, home to more than 3 million people, and hasn't seen a direct hit from a major hurricane in more than 100 years.
Say you're in a single-story home, 12 feet is above that house. So if you're in it, basically that's the coffin that you're in.
Many of the streets here in Tampa are still lined with debris. All of this left over from Hurricane Helene, which came with a record storm surge of up to 8 feet in some places. But if you take a look above from our drone camera, you could just imagine what could happen to these homes with a surge nearly twice as high.
It was above the baseboard.
Tani Tahirai just finished gutting parts of his home after Helene.
This is what's left.
This is what's left out of the house. I was able to salvage.
Now forced to evacuate again with his wife and 3 children.
They're kids. This is their safety, right? This is when they come for safety. So when that's threatened, they're gonna cry. And not just because they lost toys or clothes or their favorite shoes, but they cry because this is their safe zone.
Tampa General Hospital, which treats the area's most critical patients, will remain operational, hoping the aqua fence they used to keep the surge away during Helene will also hold up against Milton.
Nothing potentially like this, a storm surge up to 15 feet, has happened in our lifetimes.
That's right.
How much does that concern you?
Well, I think the hospital's ready, right? It's concerning, but I think we're ready.
Lots of concern there and beyond. Whit Johnson joins us now on the ground. Whit, give us a sense of what you're seeing firsthand.
Yeah, Lindsay, this Tampa neighborhood is one of many almost deserted. The counties are actually providing buses to help take people to shelters if needed. We spoke with families who hunkered down and rode out the storm during Hurricane Helene, but now tell us they're evacuating. They're not taking any chances with all of this dangerous debris and the potential threat of a 15-foot storm surge. Lindsay?
Sounds wise. All right, Whit Johnson, our thanks to you. In the meantime, so many families are heeding the call to evacuate, finding themselves stuck in traffic and with gas running low. Victor Keno reports from Sarasota tonight.
Tonight, police in Florida driving through neighborhoods, warning residents to leave while they still can.
Quickly secure your home or business and safely evacuate the area.
The race to escape slowed by traffic jams and long lines for gas. More than 1,300 stations statewide running out of fuel, according to Gas Buddy.
It's been I would say, a tremendous task to get gas.
There is a desperate struggle to find fuel. Some gas stations, like this one in Sarasota, dry their pumps wrapped in plastic to protect from water damage.
State troopers now escorting tankers to resupply gas stations. For the second time in 2 weeks, Jan Holman evacuating her home of 18 years in the historic fishing village of Cortez, Florida.
What did the neighborhood look like after Helene?
It's kind of heartbreaking.
Hurricane Helene flooded her home with nearly 3 feet of water.
Helene did so much damage here, and now here comes Milton. What's that like, that 1-2 punch?
It's like, are you kidding me? How can that happen? We're just praying that something changes at the last minute.
Her trunk now packed to the brim, evacuating again.
Lindsay, we have been all over Sarasota. This is one of the few remaining gas stations with any fuel left, but it is drying up quickly. A little bit of a line is forming here as well as that window to evacuate quickly closes. Lindsay?
It is shrinking fast. Victor, thank you. Joining us now once again, the Deputy Director of the Hurricane Center, Jamie Rome. Thank you for coming on again with us. Give us a sense of what your biggest concern is as this powerful hurricane continues to turn toward the coast.
My biggest concern is people focusing too much on the exact track with a storm that's going to expand in size as it approaches the Florida Peninsula, and you're going to get, you're going to get these hazards that are going to be somewhat removed from the center. For example, where the track goes, I think the heaviest rain and the flooding potential for inland is going to be along into the north of where the center tracks, and so I'm worried people are just paying too much they're overemphasizing the exact track.
And we saw how quickly the storm strengthened. What about Milton is different?
I think it's going to be powerful and large. So what we're used to seeing is storms that are very, very intense but small, compact. Or we're used to seeing big hurricanes that are weak. I think with Milton we're going to see a strong hurricane that is also quite large, and it's going to be interacting with a cold front as it crosses the Florida Peninsula, which is going to produce some patterns in the hazards that people might not be used to seeing. And so the traditional way people view hurricanes, I don't think it's going to play out the way people will expect.
What's your message tonight to Florida residents?
If you've been ordered to evacuate, please do so. If you haven't been ordered to evacuate and you're in a hurricane warning, make sure you're in a structurally sound home, with nice building codes and good protection on the windows and glass. And if you don't have that luxury, try to find a friend or family member that you can stay with.
I'm sure there are a number of things, but what concerns you the most? Is it the proximity to Helene? Is it the storm surge? Is it the winds?
Unfortunately, all of those hazards are in play, and so at the coast, clearly the storm surge is going to be the biggest concern. At the coast, you can see here this purple area. We're predicting 10 to 15 feet somewhere in that area, not everywhere in that area. At wherever that 10 to 15 feet occurs, it's going to be the biggest concern there. But then once you shift inland to the rain, let's look at this heavy rain. So everything in this purple area is high risk of excessive rain and flooding. And it's hard for people who live in Florida where it rains all the time to understand how rain is threatening. But this is not a typical afternoon thunderstorm rain. The rain rates in these tropical systems is often 3-4 inches per hour, which is 2 and 3 times the rain rate that you're typically seeing in a thunderstorm. If all that rain falls on concrete, right? Think about all the buildup that we've had here in Florida. You basically get an instant flood.
Deputy Director of the Hurricane Center, Jamie Rome, we thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Tonight, with Hurricane Milton quickly approaching and just days after Hurricane Helene slammed into the U.S., former President Trump once again targeted FEMA today as millions try to recover. Vice President Harris then blasted him for spreading dangerous misinformation. Here's Rachel Scott.
Tonight, with Florida bracing for a monster storm, as Georgia and North Carolina reel from the effects of the last one, Vice President Kamala Harris blasting Donald Trump for spreading falsehoods about FEMA, which has been on the ground for days. Harris appearing today on ABC's The View.
What do you think the effect of these lies are, and why is he doing this?
Well, it's profound, and it is the height of irresponsibility and, frankly, callousness. Yeah. I fear that he really lacks empathy on a very basic level, to care about the suffering of other people and then understand the role of a leader is not to beat people down, it's to lift people up.
Absolutely.
Especially in a time of crisis.
But today, Trump again talking about FEMA.
They said that there was just no FEMA. You virtually don't see anybody from FEMA.
But our team has been on the ground in the storm zone for days, personally witnessing the efforts of FEMA and the National Guard. Homeowners who have told us FEMA has been there to help them. Today, President Biden accusing Trump of misleading people and creating panic.
That's going to sound, use an old phrase, it's un-American. It really is. People are scared to death. people know their lives are at stake. All that they've worked for, all that they own, all that they value.
A lot of fear, some of it warranted, some from that misinformation. Rachel Scott joins us now. And Rachel, I know you have some interesting results from a new poll.
Yeah, this race has been locked in a dead heat. We are 4 weeks out from Election Day, believe it or not, but a new New York Times Santa poll that's out tonight is showing some movement here. So I want to walk you through these numbers. Vice President Kamala Harris holding a slight lead over Donald Trump at 49%, the former president at 46%. Also notable tonight, it's the first time this poll has shown more voters view Harris as the candidate representing change. 46% to 44% for Donald Trump. Trump out on the campaign trail. He is the one that has been pitching himself as the candidate of change. We're starting to see that slide now.
So interesting, considering both of them can make an argument for the other being essentially an incumbent.
Yep.
All right, Rachel Scott for us. Thanks so much. And we are also following breaking news from the Justice Department saying late today they have thwarted an alleged terror plot targeting Election Day here in the U.S. Let's get right to ABC's Chief Justice correspondent Pierre Thomas. Pierre, tell us what you're learning about this alleged plot.
Well, Lindsay, it's a new potentially chilling terror plot stopped by the FBI. The Justice Department charging 27-year-old Nasir Ahmad Tahiti, an Afghan national living in Oklahoma, with plotting to kill Americans on Election Day on behalf of ISIS. According to newly unsealed charges, Tahiti and a juvenile were arrested yesterday after attempting to buy 2 AK-47-style assault rifles, 10 magazines, and 500 rounds of ammunition from undercover FBI operatives. When arrested, DOJ claims that Tahiti confirmed the attack was planned for Election Day, targeting large gatherings of people during which he and the juvenile were expected to die as martyrs. DOJ officials say the investigation intensified after the FBI searched Tahiti's phone and discovered, Lindsay, communication with an ISIS recruiter.
So grateful for their watchful eyes. Pierre Thomas, our thanks to you. New reporting tonight from journalist Bob Woodward in his new book called War. The veteran reporter wrote that during the early days of the pandemic, then President Trump secretly sent a number of those rare COVID test machines to Vladimir Putin for Putin's personal use. Tonight, Trump is denying that claim to our Jonathan Karl.
As the COVID pandemic was raging and the government could not produce enough tests for the American people, then President Donald Trump secretly sent rare COVID test machines to Russia, to Vladimir Putin, for the dictator's personal use. That's according to Bob Woodward in a soon-to-be-published book called War. Woodward writes that Putin told Trump to keep it a secret, saying, quote, "I don't want you to tell anybody because people will get mad at you, not me." Kamala Harris seized on Woodward's new reporting today, talking about it in an interview with Howard Stern.
Everybody was scrambling to get these kits, the tests, the COVID test kits.
Couldn't get them.
Couldn't get them.
Right.
Couldn't get them anywhere.
Right.
And this guy who is president of the United States is sending them to Russia, to a murderous dictator for his personal use? This person who wants to be president again, who secretly is helping out an adversary when the American people are dying by the hundreds every day and in need of relief.
Trump often boasts about his close relationship with Putin.
I got along very well with Putin. I spoke to him a lot. Then they say how nice I was to Russia. No, I wasn't nice, but we got along. We had a good relationship, which is a good thing, not a bad thing.
Woodward also reports that Trump has had, quote, multiple phone calls with Putin since he left the White House, including at least one call earlier this year. I spoke to Trump today, and he denied it all.
He said was that you've had a number of conversations with Putin. Is that true? I mean, I imagine that could be. No?
That's false.
Oh, really?
That's false.
So you haven't spoken to him since you left the White House?
No, I have not.
And the other thing he said is that you had provided some Abbott test machines to Putin back during the COVID pandemic.
Yeah, false.
Trump also had some choice words for Woodward, calling him a storyteller who, quote, has lost his marbles. Woodward, though, of course, is one of the most respected journalists of our time. And Trump, over the years, including currently in this campaign, has frequently praised Vladimir Putin and boasted about having a good relationship with him. Lindsay?
All right, Jonathan Karl for us. Thanks so much for your reporting. Beyond the presidential race, there are, of course, a number of races that will determine control of the Senate. One of those is in California. And tonight, the candidates for the open Senate seat there will meet on the debate stage. The Democratic candidate is Representative Adam Schiff, a current member of the House, first elected back in 2000. He helped lead the first impeachment trial against Donald Trump and is a former federal prosecutor. His opponent is Republican Steve Garvey, a former Major League first baseman for the Dodgers and Padres, who's now businessman and motivational speaker. Joining us now from California to discuss the race is Zareen Shah. Zareen, give us a sense, are there broader implications for this race?
Linsey, there absolutely are. You know, a lot of experts say that Schiff is comfortably ahead. And so his team says he's not just campaigning for himself, that he's campaigning for other Democrats. And he really wants to flip the House. He wants to keep the Senate. In recent weeks, he's been to Ohio. He's been to Pennsylvania. In the next couple of weeks, they say he's going to go to Nevada, to Arizona. And he's raised $7 million for various candidates, including Kamala Harris. And Schiff himself has said that Kamala Harris has energized the top of the ticket. Garvey's team, for their part, they say, look, they think that voters in California can distinguish between the two. They're not worried about the fact that maybe a lot of Californians are excited about voting for her. And they say they're focused on winning versus campaigning or fundraising for other Republicans. Now, he didn't actually say who he was voting for several months back. I asked his team today, who will he be voting for this election? They say it'll be Donald Trump.
And what are you hearing are the candidate strategies for tonight?
Yeah, so Garvey's team says he's going to be focused on the economy, on inflation, on pocketbook issues, on crime. And they say Adam Schiff hasn't actually answered a lot of questions on crime when it comes to specific things that deal with the state. Like, for example, the LA district attorney. They say they don't know how he's actually voting when it comes to that race. George Stephanopoulos has been incredibly controversial for some people in this city. And so we'll see if that comes up tonight. Schiff's team, for their part, they haven't given any specifics, but they did say during the primary that they liked his message of effectiveness, his message of getting things done, and so expect that kind of tone tonight.
All right, Zareen Shah for us. Thanks so much, Zareen. And be sure to watch the California Senate debate tonight right here on ABC News Live. Coverage starts at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Police are investigating a reported mugging involving Dodgers starting pitcher Walker Buehler. He and his wife were at a horse racing track last month when police say they were suddenly surrounded by a mob of people. One mugger stole his $100,000 watch. Police say two similar incidents were reported that same day. This also comes just weeks after 49ers rookie Ricky Pearsall was shot after an alleged mugging. Buehler is still scheduled to start tonight's playoff game against the Padres. A new trial date is set for the suspect in the shooting of teen Ralph Yarl due to a mental health evaluation. A judge ordered a mental health assessment for 85-year-old Andrew Lester to see whether or not he is deemed fit to stand trial. Lester's trial, originally scheduled for yesterday, was delayed indefinitely as a result. This comes after Lester's attorney filed a motion requesting the suspect undergoes a mental health check, claiming his health conditions could impair his ability to understand the legal proceedings. The trial has now been pushed to February of next year. Overseas tonight, Israel is expanding its ground assault in southern Lebanon, sending in thousands more troops. Prime Minister Netanyahu says they've killed Hezbollah's longtime leader Hassan Nasrallah and his new successor as well. ABC's Matt Gutman is in Israel tonight.
Tonight, after a hobbled Hezbollah launched dozens of rockets at Israel's port city of Haifa, the IDF announcing they're now expanding their ground operation in southern Lebanon, deploying thousands of additional troops to support the thousands already working to clear Hezbollah from the border with Israel. In drone video shared online, you can see this small town near the border reduced to rubble. Troops raising the Israeli flag in this village along the Lebanese border. In the militia stronghold of southern Beirut, Israeli airstrikes and evacuation orders to civilians to flee their homes. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying the group is on its knees.
We've degraded Hezbollah's capabilities. We took out thousands of terrorists, including Nasrallah himself, and Nasrallah's replacement, and the replacement of his replacement.
Israel has assassinated almost all of Hezbollah's top officials. And today, a surviving leader, Qasem Naim, vowing to fight on, but also calling for a ceasefire. The State Department skeptical.
Where have they been for a year? For a year, the world has been calling on Hezbollah to stop the attacks across the border into Israel.
Matt Gutman in Tel Aviv for us. Still much more to get to here on Prime tonight. Coming up, at least 14 states sue TikTok alleging harm to children. But next, they're running through violent scenarios that could play out in November. We introduce you to the election workers dedicated to ensuring the voting process as we launch our new series, Protecting Your Vote.
Did you kill Mary Yoder?
Sorry. No, I did not kill Mary Yoder.
This is a mystery. How did she die? They begin to do this autopsy. It's just screaming, toxin, toxin, toxin.
Did somebody intentionally do this to her?
When the tests came back, I thought, yeah, holy, are you kidding me?
My garden club is very divided. People think she's innocent. I think she's guilty.
Never heard of a case like this. Maybe a thriller. I'm not buying this Little Miss Innocent game.
Little Miss Innocent, passion, poison, prison.
I know it wasn't me. Sorry. So, if it wasn't me, who was it?
Only on Hulu.
Hi, my name is Patrice. I am a totally cool person with a disability. Patrice always sees the best side of life. I just looked at her and I said, would you like to be my wife?
If you get married and you're collecting a Social Security benefit, your benefit will be cut.
I don't take anything for granted.
I don't see what anyone can see in anyone.
They're never gonna stop us from loving each other.
Things have changed.
What does that mean?
It means everyone is vulnerable. I know for a fact there's something else at work here.
When you put blood on the ground, there's no going back from it.
FX is the old man. All new Thursdays at 10 on FX. Stream on Hulu.
America's #1 most watched daytime talk show is ABC's The View.
You all heard it here first. I love it. I'm there for it.
Hot topics, political views.
That's what we're about.
Voices that matter. It all goes down right here.
That's why it's called the what? The View. I love it. I'm all in. Second that. This is going to be must-see TV, and so much could happen.
3, 2, 1.
It's a 24/7 life together.
It's not about the fear or the risk. It's about the love of flying. 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back. Tonight, we learned of a foiled Election Day terror plot after a man planned to kill Americans in the name of ISIS. The Justice Department announced charges against the Afghan citizen residing in Oklahoma City. And that's just one of the threats that is known, with millions across the country expected to go out and vote on November 5th. And it's threats both foreign and domestic that the nation's election workers are now trying to guard against. Tonight, we introduce you to some of those who are dedicated to ensuring the integrity of the voting process. The first in a month-long series called Protecting Your Vote. We start with our senior national correspondent, Steve Osinsami, and his look at how election officials are protecting themselves and the vote.
I can remember when this red light here at the old courthouse was the only red light in the county. And now everything's changed. We've grown so much.
These are strange times for this country's election workers, who are just everyday people like Deidre Holden, with the voice full of sweet Georgia tea.
We are headed over to our first poll worker training for the November election.
For the last 17 years, she's directed elections in Paulding County, Georgia, a suburb northwest of Atlanta.
Welcome. We're glad you're here. You are the holder and the keeper of our democracy, and that is a very precious thing that we never need to take for granted. So I'm going to ask my election cheer squad to come to the stage. Y'all need pom-poms. Everybody needs pom-poms, signs. I want enthusiasm. I want y'all to act like you're glad to be here. I want you to act like you're proud to be an American. Go. We're in elections, couldn't be prouder. If you can't hear us, we'll yell a little louder. We're in elections, couldn't be prouder. If you can't hear us, we'll yell a little louder.
This feels more like a pep rally, reminding her poll workers that democracy is in their hands and that it's something to celebrate. But for the first time ever,
I demand that I vote. Give me my ID, and I want to vote now.
they're role-playing a month before November 5th.
I'm going to need to call my husband. Would you like my
They've been training for the worst. Screaming voters,
Can I vote now?
deadly packages, and active shooters.
Most important thing is to get those voters out and get them to safety, or put them in a room, get in the room, barricade the door, and fight for your life if you have to. And I never thought I'd ever have to say those words. I'm sorry.
Nothing to be sorry for. This is not the way it's supposed to be.
No, it is not.
Even though this is still a county where the red team always wins, she says some people here started threatening her life and scaring her staff with frightening emails after Joe Biden won the statewide vote in 2020.
If you can read me some of this.
And I won't be explicit.
Of course,
because
yeah.
that's not who I am.
Yeah.
You know, when you start reading it, the first thing is the election is rigged. We're all complicit. One of the things that always stands out to me in this email is when you get to the part here that says, we'll make the Boston bombings look like child's play at the poll sites in this county. You just effing wait.
And it was sent to you specifically?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Our marshal said, I want all of your employees to park up against the building, because if someone comes and sets off a bomb in a car, that will soften the blow.
The cars will
Detonates.
be a shield.
Yes. People have not gotten over 2020, and it has spilled over into 2024. And I have prepared my staff. I said 2020 was nothing compared to what we're about to go through.
They had to put up new cameras and keep a bag of Narcan near the mailbox for absentee ballots in case someone tries to hurt her people with an envelope of deadly drugs.
Do you have a panic button in this office?
I do. I'm looking at it right now.
Wow.
Yeah. And I never had that.
You had escorts, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Yeah. Escorts
And,
home from the office?
My husband was with me.
Yeah.
We just celebrated 38 years of marriage, and he never misses a day of work. And when I got up at 3:30 election morning, he gets up and he starts getting ready, and I'm like, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
He says, I'm going with you.
Yeah, he's not leaving you alone today.
Yeah.
What I did know, that
Okay.
that whatever she went through, I was gonna be there with her. And that she wasn't gonna go through it alone. And nobody was gonna get to do anything without going through me. And what I could do, I don't know, but I was gonna be there. So that's what we done. She loves this so much. I would support her right, if I had to come to work with her every day.
Here I am. I love you so much. Love you. And that was when it became very real to me that elections are not what they used to be.
They all feel for what happened to two Georgia election workers in the city who were terrorized by a fire of lies, wrongly accused of stuffing ballots on camera. Somehow people who were watching this live video of the two women counting votes were claiming that they were seeing things that weren't real.
I've always told my girls in this office, I call them my girls, they're like my children. It's my job to protect them. And I'm gonna fight with everything I have. And I don't ever want it to come to that. But I fear that that's what it's coming to.
It's a tough time to work elections across America. The U.S. Justice Department says it's tracking hostile threats to election officials and other public servants every day. In September, and for the second time this year, someone mailed mysterious powders to election officials in 22 states. The senders would often call themselves the United States Traitor Elimination Army. One of those packages was mailed to this man, arguably the most famous state election official in America.
I hope that all my fellow Georgians understand that the people working at the polls, those poll workers, they're your neighbors. They're good people, just like you.
Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger says the threats haven't stopped since he refused demands from the former president to break the law and change election results when Trump lost the state.
I want voters to understand in Georgia that we're going to have an accurate election. I also understand that half the people aren't going to like the results.
This year, he says he needs to send Narcan to protect poll workers at every election location in Georgia.
We're threat assessing every day.
Your own personal security, how has that been?
Well, many of us had death threats.
Okay.
And it's one of those things that's highly unfortunate. And one of the things that we've worked so hard on for the last, 4 years is if voters had concern about certain aspects of the voting system, we wanted to shore that up with good policy.
After he refused to rig the election, the former president's supporters in the State House removed him from the state election board and put in 3 people who Donald Trump has famously called his pit bulls.
3 people are all pit bulls fighting for honesty, transparency, and victory.
They're now trying to change some of the rules a month before the November election. For example, requiring poll workers to hand count ballots that the machines have already totaled. Raffensperger says this will only promise delays on election night and says it's too late to do all this now.
We've worked for 4 years to get you quick results. All of a sudden, you added this additional complication, and a tremendous burden on these folks that are really public service. I'm doing my job. Our folks are doing our job. Counties are doing their job. So I would tell them, the state election board, do your job.
It's very clear you wish they would do better, in your opinion.
We do our job.
I'm called to be a public servant. I love my people. I love my voters. And it's what I want to do. And I promise you, there is no thought that ever goes through my mind of not counting a vote or cheating. I wouldn't know how to throw an election if you paid me to.
In the suburbs, Deidre Holden says she's ready. Early voting starts in less than 2 weeks. And she says she's praying that her staff and her voters stay safe.
I think every American needs to know that we are the United States of America, and that if we don't unite, it doesn't matter. We need to bring back the love everyone. It's not about the politics. Good. Thanks for being here.
So eye-opening. Our thanks to Steve Osunsami for that. Still ahead here on Prime, the scary moment when a driverless car catches on fire on a busy highway. Plus, the case the Supreme Court has just decided to hear that could have a national impact on one specific type of gun. But up next, as Hurricane Milton hurls toward Florida, we examine the population boom and dip of the Sunshine State when we look by the numbers.
How many elephants have you killed? True natural beauty, one of the last of its kind. But this comes at a cost. 5 countries, 5 incredible real stories of adventure, danger,
We have to go.
and deceit. Where are we going next? We got this ongoing search for the animal we've been trying to find. These are the last lands. The national parks around the world that have to be saved.
Yo, partner. We're not partners. I'm the detective and you are the consultant. I see you brought your baby to a crime scene.
She is just spectating.
You're a single mom with 3 kids pretending to be a cop.
I am not pretending. I spot things that detectives miss. Still think my theory's flimsy?
That big brain of hers is going to help us close a lot of cases.
I'm just out here super copping.
High Potential, all new Tuesday on ABC and stream on Hulu.
Hey, like $1 million bucks, baby, like $1 million bucks.
Like $1 million pesos.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome
I did terrible things. I hurt a lot of people.
I know who you are.
Ball is in the air! You're special.
Yes, it's a touchdown.
What if God made me this way?
FX's American Sports Story. Aaron Hernandez. All new Tuesdays at 10 on FX. Stream on Hulu.
Trick or treat!
When I flick this switch, there'll be a horrible noise and a terrible odor.
Will it hurt?
Pain like you've never known. Oh!
Seems risky. I am much satisfied.
What? You scared? This is happiness.
We love Halloween. Got me.
He's a bit silly.
Turning the machine off! Do you feel good?
When you're 61 years old, you have very few opportunities to change your life. This time, I have to be ready. This is about everybody like me. I see a future, which is not what I felt like for a really long time. I don't feel invisible now.
I'm Matt Rivers, and that is the Panama Canal. Wherever the story is, we'll take you there. You're streaming ABC News Live.
Welcome back, everyone. Millions of Americans have moved to Florida in recent decades, drawn to its balmy climate, lack of state income tax, and fewer business regulations. But a number of factors, not the least of which hurricanes and the higher insurance costs they bring, are finally putting the brakes on Florida's housing market in tonight's By the Numbers. Since 1985, the population of the entire state has doubled to more than 22 million residents, according to the U.S. Census Bureau. The population increased by more than 800,000 people during the pandemic alone. Working from home made the choice a no-brainer for some, also doubling the price of a home there in just the last 7 years. But home prices have now flattened out. Economists are citing home insurance rates in Florida that are more than 4 times the national average as one reason why demand has dissipated. The average Floridian pays $11,000 annually for home insurance. Cleanup costs after major hurricanes now often in the tens of billions of dollars. And now the Tampa Bay area housing market is bracing for the 10 to 15-foot storm surge possibly heading its way. Inventory there is already up around 50% in the past year for single-family homes and condos. Adding insult to injury, demand there has decreased 10%. That data from Parcel Labs, a real estate data and analytics firm. And we still have much more ahead here on Prime tonight. Actors Anna Kendrick and Nicolette Robinson discuss Woman of the Hour, their new movie based on the true story of a serial killer who once appeared on an episode of The Dating Game. And TikTok is sued by 14 different states, each alleging the social media platform is designed to be addictive and is therefore harmful to children.
Hey, like $1 million bucks, baby, like $1 million bucks.
Like $1 million pesos.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome
Things have changed.
What does that mean?
It means everyone is vulnerable. I know for a fact there's something else at work here.
When you put blood on the ground, There's no going back from it.
FX is the old man. All new Thursdays at 10 on FX. Stream on Hulu.
America's #1 most watched daytime talk show is ABC's The View.
You all heard it here first. I love it. I'm there for it.
Hot topics, political views.
That's what we're about.
Voices that matter. It all goes down right here.
That's why it's called the what? The View. I love it. I'm all in. Second that. This is going to be must-see TV, and so much could happen.
Did you kill Mary Yoder?
Sorry. No, I did not kill Mary Yoder. So it was a normal day until Mary started getting sick. No one really knew what was happening.
Her eyes just looked terrified. In less than 48 hours, my mom went from her healthy self to having died.
This is a mystery. How did she die? They begin to do this autopsy.
It's just screaming, toxin, toxin, toxin.
Did somebody intentionally do this to her?
When the test came back, I thought, yeah, holy, are you kidding me?
I had dated Adam. I was scared of him. It changed the way I see the world.
She was really afraid for her life.
I do think Bill could have killed Mary. His wife died in July, and in November, he was dating his sister-in-law.
There was nothing in the world that was making sense at that point.
Caitlin Conley was guilty as sin.
Are you okay?
I'm sorry, I'm scared.
This girl thought she was smarter than everybody else. But there's another side to Caitlin Conley.
Well, I'm not buying this little Miss Innocent game.
Sequoia's a very small town. Everybody knows everybody.
My garden club is very divided. People think she's innocent. I think she's guilty.
Never heard of a case like this. Maybe a thriller.
It was pure evil. We weren't quite sure what was coming next.
I know it wasn't me. Sorry. So, if it wasn't me, who was it?
Little Miss Innocent. Passion, poison, prison. Only on Hulu.
You're watching America's #1 streaming news, ABC News Live. Breaking news, exclusives, live reporting across the globe. Keep streaming with ABC News Live.
Sex, lies, and a double murder.
2 small children were kidnapped.
Your mom and dad are gonna be right here waiting on you when you get home.
When the twist came, then it completely exploded.
It's one of the craziest stories I've ever heard, and people don't know about it.
What kind of mother would kill her own children?
After nearly 30 years in prison, Smith now has a chance at parole. Could the woman once dubbed the most hated mom in America go free?
Killer Mom, now streaming on Hulu. With so much at stake, so much on the line, more Americans turn here than any other newscast. ABC News World News Tonight with David Muir, America's #1 most watched newscast across all of television.
At least 14 states sued TikTok, alleging harm to children. The New York Jets sacked their head coach just 5 games into the season and with a year still left on his contract. And the Supreme Court appears likely to uphold limits on ghost gun kits. These stories and much more in tonight's Rundown.
14 states are suing TikTok for allegedly harming the mental health of young people and misleading the public about the platform's safety for young users. The lawsuits filed individually by each state accuse TikTok of falsely claiming it is safe for young people when many young users report struggling with poor mental health due to the platform's allegedly addictive features. TikTok says in a statement they strongly disagree with these claims. The price of a Mega Millions ticket will be more than double in April as part of an overhaul of the lottery game. That $2 ticket will soon cost $5. Mega Millions said the overhauled game will result in jackpots that start larger, grow faster, and are bigger more frequently. The current odds of winning the jackpot are 1 in 302 million. The New York Jets fired head coach Robert Saleh amid the teams losing 3 of their first 5 games. Saleh was hired by the Jets in 2021 and had a 20-36 record. The Jets entered the season with high expectations, with quarterback Aaron Rodgers returning from an Achilles injury that had derailed his 2023 season after just 4 plays. But they've struggled on defense. Defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich was named interim head coach. The U.S. Supreme Court is considering whether self-assembled guns, kits, and partially complete firearm frames or receivers, which can easily be converted into a functional firearm, can be subject to the same purchase restrictions and registration requirements as traditional guns. As the number of ghost guns recovered from crime and accident scenes soars, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms in 2022 reclassified gun kits and parts as firearms, but a group of manufacturers sued the Biden administration, alleging the rule exceeded their regulatory authority, claiming weapons kits do not meet the definition of a firearm under the law. A final opinion on the matter is expected next year. The FDA has authorized the first combined over-the-counter COVID and flu test outside of emergency use. The new combined test from the company HealGen uses the nasal swab we're all now accustomed to deliver at-home results in approximately 15 minutes. The test detects proteins from both the virus that causes COVID-19 and influenzas A and B. A car in Seattle that caught fire on the highway slowly rolled its way across 4 lanes of interstate while engulfed in flames. Washington State Patrol said no injuries were reported and the driver of the car was able to exit safely.
In 1978, a notorious serial killer targeted his next potential victim live on a nationally televised show, The Dating Game. The new film, Woman of the Hour, marks Anna Kendrick's directorial debut and is based on this true and harrowing tale. Let's take a look.
And would you please say hello to Cheryl, Bachelor number 3.
Lights up on number 3. We're going to have a great time together, Cheryl.
He's confident.
Joining us now is Anna Kendrick and another star of the film, Nicolette Robinson. Thank you both so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
So, Anna, initially you decided you're going to star in Woman of the Hour. What made you decide, you know what, I'm also going to put on that directorial hat as well?
Well, it was a scary decision, but you know, I was attached to the movie as an actor for about 2 years, and sometimes projects just take forever to come together, and then sometimes a project that's taking forever very suddenly has a ton of momentum, and like they get the money in place and they have a start date, and that was the situation we were in, and we did not have a director. And so we were looking at more experienced people, and I just had this really scary thought, which was, I think I want to do it, and I'm going to raise my hand, and I'm going to and sort of pitch myself. But I really had found myself over those 2 years like absolutely obsessed with the script. I thought it was so beautiful, and while it is like a fascinating true crime story, it's also a really emotional story. The script is kind of beautiful, and it deals with the grief and the magnitude of it in a way that I think is really emotionally resonant.
So this is your first time. Will it be your last as a director?
I would love to do more. Frankly, I think I hit the jackpot with the script and with the cast, and so I think it would take a lot. Because I think I really got so lucky on my first try, but I would love to do more in the future.
It was probably a lot of skill and not just luck. You play Laura, Nicolette, and that's a very layered character. How did you go about preparing for that emotional complexity?
Yeah, I don't know how you fully enter prepared for something like that. For me, I just tried to stay as present as possible and focus on the grief that Laura goes through. I mean, I think we talk about it a lot because Laura is very representative of a lot of people who were trying to be whistleblowers and trying to draw attention to this person. And so for me, it was just to stay as grounded as possible and really just like take the sensitivity of it very seriously.
And Anna, how did you go about recreating this true story? Is it harder to do something when you're not trying to take so many liberties, you're actually trying to portray real events?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we tried to strike a balance of taking the details that we found the most moving and using those as seeds from which to tell this story, and really to be true to the kind of larger emotional truths. Like obviously something like Nicolette's character, you know, she's kind of a composite character of all these people who are trying to raise the alarm and were really let down by a system that was not set up to support victims. And you know, there is a story of eventually an investigation and, you know, convictions, and those things actually line up with a really kind of like Hollywood story, but it would really be ignoring the emotional truth of a decade and more of people, you know, falling through the cracks of the system and a series of injustices and all the ways in which these women had to try to move through the world and keep themselves safe emotionally, financially, physically. So, you know, there are dramatic choices that we made, but it was always in service of being true to the feeling that you have when you hear the entire story.
Question really for both of you. It seems like a lot of times in these kinds of movies, there's a serial killer narrative, and that's the focus. And sometimes the victims really kind of somewhere else in the background. But it felt like this was intentional to really focus on the victims and not just the serial killer here.
Absolutely. And I mean, who better than Anna Kendrick to have us leading us in that? I mean, she was so intentional that it was very important to follow these women and their experiences. And I think just as an actor, a part of this project, seeing this strong, beautiful, talented woman leading the fray. And she had such sensitivity throughout all of it. I mean, you did such a beautiful job, and you took it so seriously. It was not about letting anybody be divisive characters, you know, you did an amazing job.
Nicolette's too nice. It makes me embarrassed. It makes me giggle.
Well, I do want to pick up on something that you've said before with regard to this, that you wanted to highlight the incompetence and negligence surrounding these real-life events. Give us an example of what you mean by that.
So there was just, there were so many injustices, and I get kind of like hot under the collar even thinking about it. And, you know, I hoped to really center the impact that this person had on these people who did nothing to deserve it, rather than on him.
Kudos to both of you for doing just a masterful job of retelling this story in a way that, again, is not the typical version that we often see. So Anna, Nicolette, we thank you both so much for joining us tonight. Want to let our viewers know Woman of the Hour will be on Netflix on October 18th. And that is our show for tonight. I'm Linsey Davis. ABC News Live is here for you all night with the latest news, context, and analysis. Thanks so much for streaming with us. Have a great night.
What does it take to be the most watched newscast in America?